Hello everyone, my name is Thomas, I'm a professional paleontologist, and welcome to a slightly different kind of video for our channel. We're going to chat a little bit about a game that isn't even out yet. It's Jurassic World Evolution 2. So here on the Palaeocast Gaming Network, we know a lot of you are big fans of the first Jurassic World Evolution game, and if you've been subscribed for a while, you might remember that we reviewed the gameplay and the science in one of our first videos, which I'll link somewhere on the screen and in the comments, and if you haven't seen it, go back and check it out. So let's talk about Jurassic World Evolution 2. Now for full transparency, I have to say that Frontier Games haven't sent us a copy and we haven't actually played it yet. So what we're going to be talking about is based on the promotional material that Frontier have released, as well as some of the early access videos from some of my favourite YouTubers such as PartyElite and Republic of Play, so big thanks to them. It's also super important to note that Jurassic World Evolution 2 is a work in progress, so some of the things that we're going to be talking about might not be in the final release version of the game, but I think we should chat about it anyway. The obvious thing that we should talk about straight off the gate in Jurassic World Evolution 2 is that it's not based on a series of islands as per the original game. Much of the pre-release footage is based in North America and especially in Canada, where the scenery of the forests and the mountains looks really visually interesting. Lots of the footage has showcased day-night cycles, which we did see in the last game, but has some new dynamic weather including sandstorms and snowstorms, which look really cool, but I'm not really sure how it's going to impact the gameplay, so I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes. The game has a classic story mode and a sandbox mode, which is just the same as the last one, but it has a new mode called Chaos Theory, which seems to be a mission-based mode based on scenarios from the different films in the franchise. That one will be quite interesting. I'm not sure I'm that bothered about it, but keep an eye out for it. I think it's going to be one of these sorts of achievement hunting sort of game modes. I'm not sold just yet. The next thing being pushed really heavily in the advertising is the introduction of marine reptiles, including the iconic Mosasaurus from Jurassic World, which is really interesting because you have to feed them great whites, so I presume you're just fueling the extinction of great white sharks to feed your Mosasaurus. And of course, flying reptiles make an appearance, such as the Pterodon and Dimorphodon. All in all, Frontier have stated that there are going to be 75 different prehistoric species in the game, which is a pretty solid number, and I imagine that they're going to release a lot of DLC as they did in the last game, so hold on to your wallets because it's going to be expensive. The dinosaurs in Jurassic World Evolution look really good, as they did in the last game, and the developers say in their dev blog that they've added more interactions into the game so the animals feel more dynamic and real. One aspect of the devlog that really interested me is that they've been working on hunting mechanics, so animals like the Velociraptor can hunt in packs now. This is really cool, but I haven't actually seen much of this in the actual gameplay that they've showed. In fact, most of the gameplay that I've seen, especially from the YouTubers, the animations seem pretty janky if I'm brutally honest, and kind of repetitive, which was a big complaint that I had about the first Jurassic World game. The dinosaurs do look pretty similar to the last game, and obviously, I could flog a dead horse about the raptors and other dinosaurs not being super scientifically accurate, but honestly, what's the point, and does anyone actually care at this point? I do, however, find it utterly hilarious, this screenshot which I took off the Jurassic World Evolution 2 website, where they talk about how realistic the dinosaurs are using a picture of a Velociraptor that has broken wrists, is way too large and has no feathers. I mean, you literally could have chosen any dinosaur, come on Frontier, do a little bit better. One aspect of the game that I'm particularly excited about is changes to animal requirements. In the first game, you could just chuck a variety of herbivores into a paddock with some feeders, and if they had a little bit of forest and a little bit of grassland, it would be pretty much no problem. But in Jurassic World Evolution 2, they've got rid of plant feeders altogether, and they've actually make you create different environments within the paddocks using different paleo-botanical foodstuffs. I really like this because it's going to allow you to customize the habitats quite a bit, but I'm not really sure it's as deep as I'd like it to be because most of the animals seem to be grazers or browsers and just reliant on different plants. I would quite like to see ones that, ate specifically roots, maybe they were diggers. I'm not really 100% sold on how much this is actually going to increase gameplay mechanics. Another really interesting aspect that they have announced is that each dinosaur will have dynamic territories, which means that you can create super large enclosures with different predator types, and they can basically reside within their own territories and hunt within them. But if they do overlap, then obviously they're going to fight, so this could create quite an interesting dynamic if you're really short on space. I really love this principle, but It doesn't seem like the system is quite working based on some of the early access material that I've seen. Some of the dinosaurs don't seem to fully explore their paddocks, so which means that they fail to find food sources made for them, and other dinosaurs seem to just like loiter in the corners of their paddocks and don't really seem to be doing too much. So hopefully this gets fixed in some of the later iterations of the game before it gets released. Now, if you've watched my previous Jurassic World Evolution video, you'll know that one of my biggest criticisms was the management in the last game. Fundamentally, Jurassic World Evolution was a pretty boring game, but it seems to me like Frontier have actually listened to this feedback. Management was really lacking in the last game because the guests just seemed like mindless drones that walked aimlessly around the park, throwing money at lifeless gift shops and staring in disbelief as a stegosaur thunders down the road towards them during an inevitable breakout. Frontier seem to have addressed this by adding different types of guest interest groups. Some want a luxurious trip, while others are seeking adventure. I mean, presumably they want to stick their heads inside a T-Rex mouth and take a selfie and put it on Instagram. To me, I hope this really adds a layer of depth to the management, because previously, like I said, it's been really boring. Well, the devs have also shown that there are customizable aspects with the buildings, which is great because in the first game, after a while the parks did feel a little repetitive and stagnant. So I'm really interested to see how that plays out and how different the parks look every time you play it. And while we're chatting about it, in a couple of the YouTubers' early access videos, I did see some dino attacks, and they still look a little bit underwhelming with dinosaurs just sort of wandering around while guests walk amongst them. I mean, I guess this is unsurprising based on the fact that the game is aiming for a low PEGI rating, but even the footage I've seen of the pterosaurs like swooping down and picking people up, they just kind of drop them, and I just felt really disappointed with that. You know, it is what it is. In the first game, another one of my pet peeves was the fact that there was no time dilation, which means that large portions of the game you were just forced to sit there while money slowly accrues. Thankfully, they seem to have added some speed up time buttons, and this makes me so bloody happy, because it's just such a small but really simple quality of life development, and I'm really glad they've included this. I cannot tell you how annoyed I was in the first game that you couldn't just speed up time. It's so simple and such a standard in these sorts of games. On the downside, in the last game, the building mechanics and building placement was absolutely terrible. It has this crappy snap system and a terrible collision engine, which basically means terrain caused your parks to look super ugly. And from the footage that I've seen, it just doesn't seem like they've addressed this. And I know that multiple YouTubers have complained about the difficulty in building mechanics and how poor the road/path placement systems are. I know a few YouTubers were just like, oh well, that's what we expect in these kind of games. But no, we should expect better. Like, it's such a simple fix. One thing that I am super positive about though is that park management seems to have had another massive overhaul in the terms of actually staffing the park. It seems that a lot of the work in the park is going to be undertaken by scientists who are going to manage things like the fossil digs, the DNA extraction, incubation, and loads of other aspects. So managing the scientists is going to be a core aspect of the gameplay. If they become unhappy due to fatigue or underpayment, it seems like they might sabotage the park, which is something I called for in the original video. I'm so happy that they're going to include this, and to be honest, Frontier, I'll be waiting for my check in the post because, you know, we here at PGN, we blatantly suggested that. The other thing though is that it seems like the terrible voice acting is back, and it was super cringe in the last game. I really hoped that they did a little better, like did a better job. It doesn't seem to be the case, so I'm imagining as I play the game, there's going to be a lot of eye rolls when I'm given different missions.
Owen, are you okay? What is happening?
Little busy right now.
Please tell me you have things under control.
Park rangers also seem to have been tweaked, meaning that they play a more integral part in maintaining the animals. To check up on dinosaurs, you need to actually build ranger outposts now in or near the enclosures to allow the rangers to actually report on the dinosaurs. I also saw a drivable mobile veterinary vehicle, which means that looking after injured animals is going to be a little bit more complex than the last game, where basically in the last game you could just tell the rangers just to sort of look after the animals, and they would just fire a dart gun that just dispensed magic sponge bullets that seemed to heal wounded dinosaurs like really quickly. Generally, I really like the direction that this aspect of the game is going in, and I think it will mean that there's going to be like much more manual use of the rangers, which is good because in the last game it was kind of monotonous where you just automated and you sort of clicked on the rangers and told them to go and do their missions to feed the dinosaurs and magically fix fences, and they just went away and did it and then came back. Hopefully, in this new game, it's going to be a little bit more dynamic. Although I do wonder when your park gets absolutely massive, how much micromanaging there's going to need to be. I wonder if you're going to be able to unlock different levels of automation. So I'm pretty excited to see how that's sort of developed and where that goes. And unfortunately, most of the playthroughs that we've seen, the YouTubers only had it for sort of 2 hours, so that we didn't really see that far into the game. All in all, I have to say that there has been some pretty big improvements in the general gameplay, and it does seem like they've been working to add much more depth of the management for both the animals and for the guests. I'm still a little bit on the fence, and I haven't played the game, so I don't feel comfortable recommending that you pre-order it. In fact, I would probably say don't pre-order it and wait to see when it comes out, because the game is released on November 9th for PC, Xbox and PlayStation, and on Steam it's currently, on there for £50, which is a huge amount of money. But I am quietly hopeful that this is going to be a much better game than the first one, and I am super intrigued to play it. Thanks very much for watching this slightly different type of content. If you enjoyed this, let us know what your thoughts about Jurassic World Evolution 2 and if you'll be playing it. And make sure that you subscribe so you can hear from us as soon as the game comes out and as soon as we release that first video all about feeding a great white shark to a megalodon. Thanks so much, take care.